our latest episode. The next one is in our WrestleMania series, the retro reviews, WrestleMania 3. This is a great one. I'm your
Definitely.
host. Mike.
And I'm Frank, and let's get right into it.
All right.
WrestleMania 3, March 29th, 1987. The one that, it stood until 2016, the indoor attendance,
I believe so.
93,000 until they went to AT&T Stadium where they got supposedly 101,000.
Allegedly. But
Allegedly, we don't know.
But even
for
this
back
one,
for back then, 93,000 for a venue was pretty impressive.
and that number has been disputed too. I heard it was in the high 70s in reality. But either way, 93 is the number.
I don't know. If you look at that aerial shot of the Pontiac Silverdome, it's possible because
Jam-packed.
there were seats everywhere. Everybody was. There was a whole lot of people there.
Yeah, it was.
And again, this was another star-studded celebrity WrestleMania. You had Aretha Franklin open it up. You had Bob Uecker as the ring announcer.
Mhm.
Alice Cooper was in Jake's corner.
That's right.
We had the celebs were out again. And the one thing I remember from this was right in the beginning of it, when Vince McMahon kicked it off and he yelled out, "Welcome to WrestleMania 3." He said he put all his heart in it, that he actually felt his father's presence,
Yep.
who had died 3 years prior to this.
Mm-hmm.
He felt him there, and he almost teared when he welcomed the crowd to WrestleMania 3.
Right. Yeah, that was big.
All right, so the night kicked off at WrestleMania 3 with the Can-Am Connection, which, if nobody knows who they were, it was Tom Zink, or AKA WCW Z-Man, who was a tremendous athlete. Why WWE didn't keep him, I don't know. His tag team partner, Rick Martel, they formed what was called the Can-Am Connection.
Can-Am Connection, that's right.
They took on Magnificent Morocco and Cowboy Bob Orton, minus the cast.
Right.
So the Can-Am Connection actually got the win in this. I actually thought, to be honest, that this was going to be the start of possibly a rising tag team with Martel coming back into the WWE. But they did a few matches. They were involved in a couple of venues, but otherwise they didn't really do much. And then Tom Zink, for whatever reason, had left. And then Rick Martel moved on to become part of a tag team with Tito Santana later on in Strikeforce. But this was a good match. Morocco and Orton weren't really a tag team per se together, so Can-Am Connection had the edge in this match, and they got the victory over Morocco and Orton. So two young guys got over with the veterans, so it was a pretty decent match.
Yeah, I thought it was fine, and I felt the same way. I was wondering why, the Can-Am Connection. It's just strange. I don't know
that they got they won.
No, they just kind of like split them up, and then Strikeforce ended up happening.
Yeah, it's a mystery of why Tom Zink left, because he was an up and coming wrestler, and he had great. He was a great mid carder for WCW. He was never going to be the top guy, but he was involved in every pay-per-view they did, every Clash of Champions. So it's just a shame that they let him go. But this one was a pretty good match. The next one after that was the Full Nelson Challenge, which was Billy Jack Haynes versus Hercules.
Yeah.
And this one actually ended in a double count out, so we never got an actual winner on this one. And this wasn't one of my favorites, but it was an okay match.
It was all right. Two guys that were jacked,
Yeah. Hercules was the guy that eventually Vince was going to do something with. Billy Jack Haynes was just there. They never really did anything with him.
No, not much.
He had a very short run. The third match on the card was actually a 6-man tag team match. It was Hillbilly Jim, Little Beaver, and the Haiti Kid. Because remember back then, WWE they loved the midget wrestling, little guy wrestling.
Right. I didn't understand what they were.
It was pretty interesting. They took on, it was King Kong Bundy, Little Tokyo, Lord Littlebrook.
Yeah.
It ended by disqualification. For whatever reason, Bundy decided to squash one of his partners, and the referee threw the match out. This honestly could have been just straight up Hillbilly Jim versus King Kong Bundy.
Right? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Because at the time, Hillbilly Jim was going to get a push, but then when he got hurt and came back, they decided they didn't do anything with him.
Right.
And he was actually going to be on a fast track, not necessarily maybe to the title, but to something along the lines. But again, he got hurt. They didn't do nothing with him after he got back, and then eventually he left. Came back later on as a manager. After this, it was the loser must bow match which was King Harley Race, former NWA champion, versus Junkyard Dog. This one was actually a good match. It benefited JYD more than it did Harley Race,
right?
Because it put JYD in an upper category, taking on somebody like Harley Race.
Right. It definitely elevated him. Do you know why Harley Race became the king? Is it because he won one of those King of the Ring tournaments?
He was King of the Ring tournament.
That's what. Okay.
They actually had them back in the 80s because remember Bret Hart is a 2-time King of the Ring.
That's right.
But really is only recognized as the one time.
Yeah.
Tito Santana won one. I believe DiBiase won one. So yeah, he had won the prestigious thing because, to be quite honest, I don't ever think that, even though he was in the WWE, I don't think Vince McMahon was ever going to really push him. He did have a short, brief title thing with Hulk Hogan, but it never came to fruition. He was always the mid-carder, and by 1989, his career was pretty much coming to an end, and he had enough.
That was pretty much it.
The
ending
Race beats him.
But the ending of the match is very memorable.
Yes, with JYD, yes. I love that part.
Yeah, that was great.
He did a good job in the match, and kudos to him. The next match on the card after that was the Dream Team, Greg the Hammer Valentine and Brutus Beefcake versus the fan favorite Rougeau brothers.
Yes, this is before they turned heel.
Before they became the fabulous Rougeaus, yeah. Now, during this match, this is where they reintroduced Dino Bravo. This was actually Dino Bravo's second stint with the WWE.
Right.
The first time was back years earlier, where he was a former tag team champion with Dominic DeNucci.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he was at ringside, and he helped the Dream Team get the victory. Now, despite the win in this one for the Dream Team, Valentine, Bravo, and Luscious Johnny V all left Brutus Beefcake in the ring.
They left him for dead,
Yeah, they broke the tag team up, not telling Beefcake, because if for a brief time, even by Survivor Series, the new Dream Team was Greg Valentine and Dino Bravo, but that didn't last but like a minute.
Yeah.
But this was them telling Beefcake, "We're done with you." Now, they didn't beat him down or anything. They just left him in the ring, and that was it. And this was where Greg Valentine was going back to the singles run, and Beefcake was going to go back. And this was Beefcake's first time as a fan favorite.
Right. This is his transition into Brutus the Barber Beefcake,
which worked very well.
Yeah. That was his best gimmick. Out of the 1,000 gimmicks he's had, that was his best gimmick.
Well, that was WCW.
Yeah. But
then Beefcake this is not going to be the last time I mention him, because actually in this next match he was involved, where it was two things. It was a retirement match on one side, but it was a hair match overall.
Yeah.
Roddy Piper was actually going to retire after this match, and now he was a fan favorite. And by this point, the crowd, this was the third best match on the card because of the standing ovation that the crowd gave Piper.
Right.
Besides two matches later on in the card, this is the one that the fans focused on the most because it was one of the best leaving the industry, at least just for 2 years.
And he was leaving because he was going to film They Live, right?
Yeah, he was going into movies and he was taking time off from wrestling, but they did the retirement gimmick. And it was only one-sided, but it was a hair match overall. Roddy Piper was facing adorable Adrian Adonis, which Adonis actually left as well, because Adonis after this was pretty much done as well. And what's funny is Brutus the Barber Beefcake, this is where he got his name, the nickname the Barber,
right,
he was the one that cut Adonis's hair. Yeah,
exactly.
And this is what turned him face, and everybody started cheering him, because even though the Dream Team had broken up, they weren't cheering him as he left the arena, as he left the ring, but they cheered him on the next match when he did this.
Mm-hmm.
So that was actually a good thing for him.
Right, so it worked out.
And it was a great exit for Piper. Yeah. They gave him a standing ovation. The next match was actually interesting, and I actually liked this one. It was a 6-man tag team match. No tag team titles on the line in this one. It was the Hart Foundation and Dangerous Danny Davis, the former referee, versus the British Bulldogs and Tito Santana.
Mm-hmm.
Backstory on this one was Danny Davis was the one responsible for costing the Bulldogs their tag team titles against the Harts, and vice versa with Tito Santana losing his Intercontinental title to Randy Savage.
Right.
So he cost both of them. So for that, they suspended him as a referee, and he became a wrestler.
That's right.
I'm not saying I agree with it, but the storyline, at least right here, made sense.
Yeah.
To have the 6-man tag.
Yeah.
Would I have loved to have the Hearts versus the Bulldogs in a tag team title
straight
match?
Up in a straight up tag team match? Yeah.
they were definitely WrestleMania worthy of the tag team title match. But this match worked out all the same, and actually the Hart Foundation and Davis won the match. So it was good on Davis's start on wrestling. After this, not so much.
Yeah.
It lasted maybe another year and a half.
Pretty much.
And then he went back to reffing the right way. He wasn't a Nick Patrick. So from there, we've got the debut of the natural Butch Reed, who is one of the most, I would say, underrated wrestlers. He was never given a proper shot. Either
WWE I don't know. Yeah.
Everybody knows him for being in the tag team of Ron Simmons and Doom.
Right.
That's where he pretty much made himself, besides in WWE. And then once Doom disbanded and Ron Simmons became champion, Butch Reed pretty much phased out and did the independent scene. Unfortunately, not too long ago, he had passed away.
Yeah.
But Butch Reed defeated Coco Beware in his inaugural pay-per-view debut. And for the big guy facing the little guy, that's pretty much what we were looking at here. Butch Reed dominated that match by far. And he looked pretty good. And I honestly think they could have did something with him. But, again, for whatever reason, his run wasn't that long. And then he went to WCW and found his success there.
Right.
The next match on the card, in my opinion, could have been the main event of WrestleMania 3. Because I think this got a bigger standing ovation than the main event. For the Intercontinental Championship, it was Randy Macho Man Savage against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And oh, God, did these two tear the house down.
Yep.
This match, I believe, was about 40 minutes. This was a long one.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure.
At least maybe 30 minutes, at least. Yeah. But the way it ended, and Steamboat gets the win and gets the Intercontinental title, this place, it blew the roof off the Pontiac Silverdome.
Oh, yeah. They stole the show.
These two guys could have main evented any WrestleMania, to be honest. And if Steamboat opted to stay when Savage had become champion later on, I really believe that they could have duplicated this match.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And the thing about this is that those guys worked behind the scenes very hard. They choreographed the whole match. Like they planned it out.
They worked on this night and day for months.
They planned out every move and everything.
Their feud pretty much started when Savage became the Intercontinental Champion. Because through '86 they fought a little bit, but towards the end of '86, beginning of '87, it was nonstop house shows, and they knew they were leading up to WrestleMania, and they worked on this tremendously. And hats off to both of them. It was a very impressive match.
Yeah,
I haven't seen a greater match for Steamboat other than that hour-long match he had with Ric Flair in 1989. And this was very impressive.
This was a showcase of wrestlers, guys that really knew how to wrestle. It wasn't just about the attraction, because Hogan and Andre was a big attraction. Yes. This was about the in-ring work.
This was the best mid-card title match you could put out there.
Oh yeah, it was tremendous. I like how they had they had some like false finishes where you thought like, oh, this person won, or Macho Man won, or
even when he used the bell. And Steamboat's gasping for air.
Right.
And he had George the Animal Steele at ringside.
Right, and I think he had hurt Steamboat prior to that with the
he had done that to where Steamboat was out for a little bit, that they played it off to where he crushed his larynx. But I don't know if it was the bell or that he did the elbow, the double axe handle off the top rope to where he hit the bar, the steel gate at ringside. But in this case, he used the bell on him.
And these guys, this is where the IC title, to me, this is the point where the IC title really meant something.
Definitely. This is
where it started to, and then
obviously to take off as the mid card belt. If you have this belt, you're going on.
Right. Funny side story is that if you notice, the Intercontinental title starts to look like garbage. It looks very, very faded around this time because Macho Man was using something to polish it that he wasn't, because he always wanted to polish it. He loved the belt, and you could see how the colors started to fade. And it
was a little dull.
Right. It was very, very dull at this point. And then once eventually Honky Tonk gets it, they replaced the plates.
Yeah.
And the WF logo is not red anymore. It's gold. The whole thing was, and it looks beautiful.
I honestly think they should have that design now.
Yeah, no, it's a great design. I love that.
They had it up to recently, and then they changed.
They got rid of it again.
And the one they have now is just. No. I don't like the design on it, but I mean, they could have just like the tag titles could have been the same, because I love the way they looked in the late '80s, early '90s.
Oh yeah.
Those tag titles were great. The WWE title, I love the wing belt.
Yep.
So that Intercontinental title, I love the design on it, and I love the guys that they put it on, because they were all well deserving of it.
Yep, absolutely.
So then, after everybody calms down from that match, we go on to Jake the Snake Roberts against the Honky Tonk Man. And this is Alice Cooper is in his corner. And Honky actually got the victory on this one. So Jake's undefeated streak stops at 1.
Right. Now, was this before or after Honky Tonk hit him in the snake pit with the guitar?
This was after.
It was after, right?
Yeah, that led to this.
Yeah, because that was a huge thing, and supposedly Jake says that Honky Tonk didn't really they were supposed to fix the guitar that way it would break easily once he hit him with it.
And it didn't.
And it didn't, so that he blamed Honky Tonk Man that they didn't fix the prop or whatever, and that caused him a really bad neck injury, and then it got him hooked on prescription meds and all this other stuff. And I don't know. Honky Tonk tells one story, he tells another. Yeah. I think it kind of looked to me that Honky Tonk Man didn't hit him in the right position with the guitar.
No, he was kind of
the side. On the angle, I think he kind of hit him on the side, and that's why it didn't shatter the way it was supposed to shatter. Yeah, he hit him kind of hard. I think he hit him kind of hard.
Well, remember back then, besides the Piper's Pit, the Snake Pit was actually where a lot of the feuds started, but especially Steamboat and Jake Roberts had it out in the Snake Pit. Yeah. They had quite a few house shows where that was a stipulation.
And didn't Jake the Snake accidentally? I think it might have been during a match. It wasn't Snake Pit. He accidentally DDT'd Ricky on the concrete and knocked him out cold.
Yeah, it was a house show.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't good. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Honky Tonk goes over, like you said.
Yeah. So then from there, our next match was, it was all right. It was the Killer Bees with Hacksaw Jim Duggan in their corner against the Iron Sheik Nikolai Volkov. Yeah. This match never really. It tried to take off, but it had a whole lot of Duggan in it. Volkov wants to sing the national anthem. Duggan is upset by it because we know how patriotic the gimmick is.
Right.
And then during the match, Sheik and Volkov are doing their thing. Duggan gets involved in the match, gets Killer Bees disqualified because he hits Sheik with the 2x4, who has the camel clutch on one of the Killer Bees. So the match ends in a disqualification. Sheik and Volkov get the victory. And then shortly after this, Sheik and Volkov kind of were no more because Iron Sheik decided to leave. Nikolai Volkov went into the next direction with the Bolsheviks. Right. But these guys held on for 3 years as a tag team. They were pretty good. The Killer Bees were average.
Yeah, they're okay. They're all right.
Having Duggan in the corner, made it a little better. So I mean, it wasn't a washout, but it was it was decent. And then from there, we go to the main event for the WWE Championship: Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant.
The biggest match.
The biggest match in the history of WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm. And maybe in the industry, it might have been
pretty much. Yeah,
was the biggest match in the industry. I'll give you a little personal backstory with me with watching that. 6 years old, not even 6 because my birthday's late in the year, so I was still like five and change. And I still think the business is legit. I still think it's real. And I was I was a huge Hulkamaniac, and watching this when Andre betrayed him, like I just couldn't believe it, and I was like, why would Andre do that? Like, and I was like, and then I remember being scared for Hogan because I was like, I don't know if Hogan could beat this guy. What was your experience watching that for the first time?
Andre always terrified me as a kid. Yeah. I'll be honest, even if I played like the arcade video game and I saw Andre in the ring, as a child, I was 9. I mean, he was terrifying, especially if he choked you, was choking you out. That look, that psycho look that he would give you with bulging his eyes. He was intimidating, very intimidating,
believable,
And this whole story with when you remember Andre gave Hogan the trophy for being a champion for 3 years.
That's right. And let's go back just a little second. Remember, he congratulated him when he beat the Iron Sheik.
Yeah, with the champagne,
and everything. Yeah. So he gives him the award.
He gives him the trophy. Yeah. He walks out, which was kind of
odd. Yeah.
They were setting it up because the following week on Piper's Pit, Hogan gives Andre a smaller trophy for being undefeated for 15 years. Even though count out disqualifications happened, but he was never pinned.
Yeah, nobody pinned his shoulders.
When I saw that title, when I saw the trophy for the first time, I'm like, that's an insult. I mean, why are you insulting? Again, 9 years old. Why are you insulting your friend? Mm-hmm. And then he leaves. He's trying to praise him, and Andre leaves with the trophy. trying to give him a round of applause. He comes out a few seconds later. Now he's coming out with Bobby Heenan.
Yep.
Now I see what they're doing.
On the Piper's Pit.
Yes. And when he sees Heenan and he's got his head down, and you remember Andre, he goes, look at me when I'm talking to you. I am here for one reason, to challenge you for a World Wrestling Federation Championship match at WrestleMania. Rips the shirt off when he says this is not happening. Now it's just like you. Can Hogan beat this guy? Is this the guy that's going to end the streak? That's right.
You know what's funny about that? If you watch closely, you can see Hogan was trying to rub something in his eye. I think it was Vicks to try to make himself tear, to try to make himself cry. Well, we'll just ignore that. But yeah. And you just wondering, like, I don't know if Hogan and then he's bleeding.
Yeah, because when he slapped him, when he ripped it off and slapped it back at him, because man, Andre's hands were no joke. I mean, everybody's seen the photos at WWE headquarters. They have Andre's handprint cemented. And even guys like Big Show and Brock Lesnar put their hand in there, and it's no comparison to Andre's. I mean, this man's just got a fist that will lay you out for weeks. He's very intimidating, and why they never and they came out later in the documentary. He didn't want to be champion. He didn't
need it. He was an attraction.
He didn't need it. Yeah, he didn't need it. Yeah, it would have been nice to have him as champion, but he didn't need it. And if you remember the contract signing with Jack Tunney, how Hulk is getting all like he's drank too many Red Bulls.
Yeah, but how about before that when Piper at the end of that segment when he says you're bleeding, he says, will you accept the challenge? And then Hogan, he goes,
he just starts hulking up.
Oh man, that was as a kid, that was like I was jumping up and down, and I was like, oh yeah, get him, Hogan.
That was your superhero moment that he's going to come save the day for all his fans.
Yeah, so then they had the contract signing, which was cool. That was
because he's hulking up, and I thought he was going to have a stroke.
Yeah.
When he's trying to sign it, it's like I said before, he looked like he had too many Red Bulls.
Yeah.
And Andre's just like smirking at him, like I got this. And I mean, that was the best lead up to a main event ever.
Yeah.
And Vince, this was another Texas Hold'em moment for him. This was all or nothing. If he can't sell out the Pontiac Silverdome with 90-something thousand people, this company's not going to make it. And he pulled it off with the main event of main events. And and backstory on this one, and whether it's true or not, who knows? But I would kind of believe they would put this in his hands. Since Andre was supposedly undefeated for 15 years, Vince McMahon gave him the option, supposedly, of how do you want the outcome of this match? So leading up to WrestleMania, they always said Andre was known for his poker games, and he would only let a specific few people around him. If you tried to interview him or you were not part of his group, he'd literally yell at you, get out. So the whole time, the whole event's going on, they're trying to find out what he wants to do. He's not telling anybody. They now get in the ring, and they're having their match, and it's being choreographed and everything. Hogan still doesn't know if he's losing this belt or not. Finally, Andre, and again, this is all supposed, finally tells him, slam me and pin me. As to say, I'll put you over, you're going to beat me. And I don't know if it should have gone that way, but I guess because of the hype of the superhero mentality, it made sense.
Yeah.
It didn't hurt. It didn't hurt Andre with the fans. No, or his status. It wasn't one of those type of matches.
And it was Hogan. Hogan was bigger than life at that point, too.
Exactly.
Yeah, I really don't. I've told you this before. I don't believe that version. Hogan is always working. Like, he's never out of character. He's always working.
Well, if you remember the Andre the Giant documentary that came out, this is where it came from. Now, again, it's all speculation.
But we never heard that. The problem is you never heard that story prior to that, and then all of a sudden the story.
Andre wasn't exactly a guy that gave interviews. So, I mean.
No, but you never heard that story from anybody that he wasn't going to put him over.
This is true. That's why it's all speculation. We don't know. We can only say this is
Hogan said. Hogan also said he wrote out the entire match and he gave it to Vince for Vince to give to Andre, and Andre was very kind of like blowing him off, wasn't talking to him. And he remember Hogan also said, and I saw this in an interview. Hogan said that Andre the Giant was 800 pounds. That they went to a somewhere in the airport, some sort of a loading dock or something in the airport where they weigh stuff, and that he got on it and it was 800 pounds, and that he didn't think he could slam him, and he slammed him, and he tore his biceps.
He weighed in at WrestleMania 3 at 525.
Hogan said he was 800, but this is why I say I don't trust when Hogan tells stories. I don't trust him. So who knows?
Wasn't Yokozuna?
I think that Andre, if the story is kind of true, Andre was messing with him and wanted to get in his head and wanted him to think
Maybe
like,
they
oh,
rigged the scale or something. I don't know.
no,
But
I'm not talking about the weight. I'm not talking about the weight. I'm talking about
oh,
who was going to win the match. I think Andre was probably playing mind games with him and was screwing with him. But
it's
ultimately,
possible.
it was on Vince's, and he had the utmost respect for Vince. So I don't think that he was going to go against whatever Vince wanted. That's me personally what I think. What
I
I
know
did,
Vince wanted Hogan over
yeah,
in
that's
the
what I'm trying to
match.
say. And you know what I love? I love the line. I think it's Gorilla Monsoon that says the immovable object meets the
Against the irresistible
irresistible
force.
force. Yeah, and
Now, here's where the problem comes in during that match. Now, mostly when you see these matches, you see these big guys going into the slam. Hogan picked him up legit. This is where I think the knock on the door from the feds came in. Because now they're like, wait a minute, hold on here. This guy's 525 pounds. You just deadlifted, weighted over your shoulder
yeah. And
with
Hogan
no issues.
and Hogan said that he meant to get him all the way up,
And
but
he
that he
just
had
about got him.
tore his bicep and some muscle in the back, allegedly, according to Hogan.
Well,
He
it's
also
possibly
said,
true because he did take time off. He wasn't on another house show for another 3 months
yeah, well,
after that because Andre wasn't either. They both were after this. They both were had time off. They didn't come back around again until probably the summertime. So whether the injury was legit or not, I mean, he was off regardless. He didn't defend the title, which it's amazing that they had the 30-day rule, but how quickly some of these champions can get away from the 30-day rule.
Oh.
Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
And, it's just amazing. But they both with time off. Now, whether he tore it, it's possible because if you saw that slam, I mean, Andre didn't go into it. Hogan picked him up.
Picked him up, yeah.
I mean, this wasn't a Lex Luger, Yokozuna, where you see Yoko getting into it, where the momentum helps you get him over. Right. He deadlift picked him up, and that's where I think they went. Hi, we need to talk about this.
That could have been the starter, but the match, it wasn't your technical, it wasn't a great technical match, but the story of the match was great. The crowd
won it 2 minutes in.
That was, and I love
when he first tried to pick him up Ventura, and he landed on him.
I love how Ventura was like, he won the match. No,
he won the title. He won the title.
And they would run with that later on. They would bring it up every so often that he really
because technically it looked like Hogan didn't kick out.
Right, yeah.
And we don't know if that was the way it was supposed to go or they screwed up.
Yeah.
Or whatever the case is, but Hogan barely got that shoulder up, and it's questionable if the 3 count went down first.
Right. Yeah.
But when he first tried to pick him up and Andre landed on him, it looked like it could have been over right there.
Yeah.
Vince is probably in the back going, "Oh, please God, no! I can't have this big main event cannot end in 2 minutes."
No, could you imagine?
Oh, then we wouldn't be here talking about this.
No, not at all. But they pulled it off, man. They pulled off a great main event, a great card. This is where WrestleMania for me it hits its stride.
This is where it took off.
This is where it takes off, and you got quality. For the most part, you got quality every year. It was big, and it was just it became WrestleMania. This was the one.
And I don't know if you can find there's a main event a few years after this that can rival this one, but this was the stepping stone after this, and WrestleMania 6 I think rivaled this as far as main event popularity.
Oh yeah.
But there's not too many out there that can compare to this one.
Oh no, not at that point. It was Hulkamania at its apex, and Andre was larger than life.
At his peak.
Oh yeah, it was just, even though physically he at that point he couldn't move as well. He was deteriorating.
Not so much. I mean, more towards the end of '88.
But it was the beginning of the end.
It. Yeah, it was starting.
Yeah,
because he was wrestling since the mid '70s.
Oh yeah.
And he's been there this whole time. I mean, and and that's why they put him in a lot of 6-man tag team matches,
right,
where he didn't have to do the work as much.
Right.
And this is where he started a full-time schedule, which was also wearing and tearing on him because he went straight through Survivor Series, feuding with Hogan, and even into the Rumble, the Saturday Night Main Event, which we'll get to in the next episode, and on to WrestleMania 4.
Yeah. So this was it. So you guys let us know what you think about WrestleMania 3. I know it's a huge pay-per-view, one of the biggest main events of all time. Let us know, if you liked it, your experience as a kid or anything, or even if you were an adult at the time and you saw it. We're going to be going into WrestleMania 4 next. So, like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys soon.